Hello there, YouTube. I thought I'd show how I make some of my homemade chopper forks. Maybe someday I'll make an actual slideshow, but I'll chop it off. Fork's curve, I'll chop it up where it just starts going straight. And this time I used the pipe from an old sissy bar off your banana seat. And inside there's a shaft. This is actually an axle out of a coaster wagon. Pretty hardened steel. You'll have a slug inside there. It goes all the way down. It actually goes from here all the way down here. What I'll do is I cut these off about so far to where they meet the diameter of this. Find where it meets the diameter. And inside there's a hole. You want to leave that hole to the very last. When you're brazing on pipe or anything that's enclosed, do not do it without a hole. If you look at a bicycle, there's always a hole around the frame. That gas will build up there and explode. Not only could it splatter the brass on you, it messes up your job when you're brazing. So I'll fill it in at the very last real carefully if I want it filled in. You're not going to see it on the inside anyway. Then what I'll do, here's the before. I run out of brazing rod, so I use some copper wire. If you look through my feed or my favorites, you'll see a site where the gentleman does a wonderful job of brazing. I don't have his permission to mention his channel, so you can just look through my feed or favorites. This is the before, I should say, and here's after. And what I'll use is those sanding flapper discs. I don't have one laying here on the desk. But I'll shape this, taper it down. It comes out a little rough. You might have a few flat spots, but I will. If this was going to be something super show, I would use some Bondo filler. I use the kind that's real fine. If you buy Bondo for this stuff, you want the very fine stuff, because you might only have a 1/16 of an inch on here when you're done. What I'll do to get this round again, you buy this emery paper on a roll. It's actually cloth when you tear it. It's actually. Use this polished crankshafts, camshafts. What you'll do is you'll go like this with it, and it'll get your roundness back. Now, say you were polishing the crank of a motor, not to get off the subject, you can wrap the stuff in a circle, and you can wrap string around it, and then the string will be going up and down like this to polish the journal on a crankshaft. The old days, that's how they did it, laying underneath the car. They had it wrapped around the crankshaft journal. This does a good job of getting the roundness back. Because if you put that sanding disc on there, you're going to have 8 sides, 16 sides. No matter how flat you get it, or you make narrow ones trying to get on the edge, you're going to lose the roundness. But for this, what I'm making is not going to be that big of a deal. Here I did braze the hole shut. What I did is, I took this piece of rod. Here. And I went back about this far and I ground it smaller. I made like 8 sides so it steps down. I actually ground it. First you had a lathe, they could lathe that. Because this is a smaller diameter, these are, than the pipe. When you get in there. Even right here you're seeing where it's starting to get pretty small. So you get down in this area right here, it's going to be smaller. That way it's stuck in here about this far. So when I brazed it, with the hole, this would be better. I brazed through this hole right here. So this is brazed to this steel rod. This steel rod is brazed to here, which I sweat braze it first. This is just more or less cosmetic. It does add strength, of course, but it's to make it one size. Here's the before. If you look, if you can see them little silver, that's flux. From brazing. If you don't chip that off where this stuff is black, it's hard to sand or grind off. You'd think it would grind off. No, it's harder than getting the metal off. And it will come back and chip off and ruin your paint job. This is going to be part of a homemade Springer front end, is why this part's gone. It'll all come out in the last video there. But that's how I make a set of chopper forks out of old school forks. These do have a natural curve. They curve up this way. They actually curve up. I will have it backwards on there so it curves in. But it does give you a natural curve to it. I think I can get this like this. You can kind of see how it curves down, which will be going to the front, which makes it hard to match. But I put it on a plate and clamp it down and eyeball everything pretty good. Instead of your springiness, so you can spread in and out. Just never heat them to do that. I'd recommend not to. I'd rather squeeze it out in for a wheel or spread it out. I heated one time and it lost that, and it seemed to kind of mess it up. I'd rather have that springing action, like a spring steel. As I said, you can always squeeze them in. You can always spread them out apart, like I do it on camera. See, you can always spread them in and out, whatever wheel it is. But I thought I'd show that. You look close, you'll see the little bit of lime or brazing. I leave about a 1/16 of an inch, not quite an 1/8. Make sure it's all sucked down in there. Down here there was a little bit more of a gap. Oh, it's hard to see because it's so shiny. But once I make the homemade chopper forge, the secret's out. I've never really seen anybody else on YouTube do it, so I thought I'd post it. Here's the nasty looking. Back there's a piece of flux. If anybody can see it on camera. I'm not on telemacro, but let me bang it off there. See where it's gone? You see that spot. If you don't get that off and you paint over it, it's going to chip off someday. Plus, like I said, you try to grind and sand over that, it's like it's resistant to anything that's abrasive. It's not like the metal. But I actually use copper on this. Run out of brazing rod. 7 miles to the store. This doesn't matter. On here, it's going to be solid enough. I would rather prefer to have the brass. Enough of that. This video's gotten too long. So, thanks for watching.